Yeah, I know that there are many people who are being more vocal about how impossible it is to try to be on top of your game all the time. The whole, rest isn't an option mentality, it has become more prevalent. But, to your point, the truth is it can be very difficult to stop when we're getting dinged on our phones and our devices at all hours of the day, when we have multiple deadlines, when it's like, oh, if I could just finish this one thing early, then maybe tomorrow I could get a head start. Like it does kind of feel like, especially for entrepreneurs, artists, a nonstop thing. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we ignore our bodies and
Yeah.
the signs that our bodies are giving us, even if it isn't something that's like super serious, like, oh, I think I'm getting sick, I should stop. To your point about, syncing up and not even having the time and space to quietly reflect on just like, how does my body feel today?
They been cramping my style all week. Craving chocolate trees, checking pants, checking seeds, sipping herbal tea, and fight for menstrual equity. Jeez, hey, I kick Cramp's ass. Kick Cramp's ass. Kick Cramp, hey. 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 You're now tuned in to the Kick Cramp's Ass podcast with your host, Brittany Walker, advocating for menstrual equity, period poverty, and womb wellness. New episodes on Menstruation Mondays.
Happy Menstruation Monday, and welcome to the Kick Cramps Ass podcast, where I am your host, Brittany Walker, and you are listening to Season 4, Episode 10, Sustainable Creative Careers, The Power of Cycle Syncing. Today, we are exploring a topic that is close to the heart of every innovator and artist: sustainable creative careers. Now, we are diving into how we can stop sprinting towards burnout and start flowing towards mastery by harnessing the power of cycle syncing. Now, before we bring on our incredible guests, let's go ahead and ground ourselves. As you know, we like to kick off each episode with the I am power statement. I representing inspiration, A representing affirmations, and M representing manifestations. And the I am power statement for today is: I am a creator who honors my natural rhythms. I choose to lead with my energy, not against it, to build a career that is as sustainable as it is inspired. And we also like to give a quote of the day. And today's is: sustainability in the creative economy begins with the internal climate of the creator. When we sync with our cycles, we stop sprinting towards burnout and start flowing towards mastery. And that's by me. Now, before we go ahead and get started, I'm going to go ahead and take a good old sip of my good old Cramp elixir. We're going to cut to our first commercial break, and we will be right back with you. Tired of clunky remote recordings? Level up with Riverside FM Pro. Get studio quality audio and video, effortless editing with powerful AI tools, and seamless live streaming and collaboration. Become a pro of Riverside.fm and unlock the full potential of your content. Sign up today and make your voice heard. Visit the link in the description of this episode to discover more. Now, back to the show. Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you guys enjoyed it. Now, we're going to introduce our guest at this time. We have Kacie Luaders. She is a media entrepreneur and sound designer who focuses on bridging the gap between digital content and the traditional arts. With only 10 years of experience in the creative economy, she founded the production company Could Be Pretty Cool to help storytellers and organizations amplify their voices. She is currently pursuing an MBA to further her work in sustainable media and the evolving landscape for creators. When she isn't producing podcasts, Kacie can be found exploring the intersection of business and creativity. Welcome to the show, Kacie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I was jamming to all of your affirmations at the beginning. That was great.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you for joining us today. And let's just talk about being creative and have a free flowing conversation. Can we do that?
I think so.
It sounds great. So, your mission with Could Be Pretty Cool is making the creative economy sustainable for everyone. Have you ever considered how you could possibly sync your menstrual cycle? Was the missing piece to sustainability for creators?
So I can say I have never thought about my menstrual cycle in terms of sustainability. Now, I have read and I've actually been to a few webinars with people who were talking about, in general, women in the workplace and how menstruation affects certain, times where they're more productive or certain times where it may be a little, you need something else to push through your work. And I mean, this was still well into my adulthood. This is, mid to late 30s before even thinking about the concept of how does menstruation affect one's workplace, one's working ability, wasn't something that was ever remotely taught to us. And so with, folks like yourself, folks who are putting this information out into the world, I think now, even though I'm not gonna lie, in truth, I'm on the tail end, I hope, of this journey. But it's probably still gonna be, some years I have to work and figure this out. So it's something that I definitely am going to be looking more into. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point of us having Kick Cramps Ass, because the same thing, I was into my 30s before I even started figuring out what cycle syncing was. It just kind of fell into my lap. I'm like, wait, why my mama didn't know about this? Why my grandma didn't know? Aunties, like no church members, no like coworkers, nobody was talking about it. And this is why we need to have these applicable conversations, because again, certain parts of our cycle, like for instance, the follicular phase, that's when you're supposed to be like your most creative, your most vibrant. It's like the first 2 weeks directly after you have your period. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that I can use that to my benefit when I was younger. And I'm like, see, if I would have known this back in high school and in my 20s and coming into my 30s, things probably could have been a little bit different.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep. So in the creative industry, there's often a pressure to always be on. However, cycle syncing is when you change your diet, your exercise, or any type of lifestyle habit during each phase of your menstrual cycle to support your health and well being. How does cycle syncing challenge the traditional 24-hour hustle narrative that often leads to creator burnout?
Man, I know that there are many people who are being more vocal about how impossible it is to try to be on top of your game all the time. The whole, rest isn't an option mentality, it has become more prevalent. But, to your point, the truth is it can be very difficult to stop when we're getting dinged on our phones and our devices at all hours of the day, when we have multiple deadlines, when it's like, oh, if I could just finish this one thing early, then maybe tomorrow I could get a head start. Like it does kind of feel like, especially for entrepreneurs, artists, a nonstop thing. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we ignore our bodies and
Yeah.
the signs that our bodies are giving us, even if it isn't something that's like super serious, like, oh, I think I'm getting sick, I should stop. To your point about, syncing up and not even having the time and space to quietly reflect on just like, how does my body feel today? How do my I'm leaning in, like, how do my shoulders feel? How does, we need to have more opportunities to do that. And so, yeah, I need to get better at paying attention and learning about how to trust what my body is unconsciously trying to tell me versus just trying to power through all of the things.
Absolutely. And I think it's different based off of what you're doing as well. Like, okay, if you're in corporate America, hey, go to work 9 to 5, 7 to 3, whatever your schedule is. You can possibly plan around, okay, maybe I can meal plan on the weekends. Maybe I can exercise in the morning, things of that sort. But when you're an entrepreneur, that's kind of difficult unless you kind of control your morning, top of the day, however you want to mention it, routine, so to speak, because you could have a meeting at 6 a.m. in the morning one morning. The next time you're not having meetings until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you were up all night. So maybe you might sleep in and you don't get your day started till later. It's like, how do you stay on top of trying to make sure that, okay, if they're telling me I need to move daily, I need to eat a certain way, I need to not have this, let me not drink alcohol because that can mess with my hormones, that's going to disrupt my room. Like, so what am I going to do if I want to like calm down and relax? Okay, well, I should meditate. Well, I don't feel like meditating right now, so maybe I want to watch TV. And then, next thing you know, you're not doing the things that you should do. So I feel like it's much more difficult for entrepreneurs, creators, or people that don't have that, so to speak, set schedule of having to just get up and go to work Monday through Friday, and then you can easily plan around that versus having a schedule that could be all over the place sometimes.
It's very true. But again, we're now at a point where we know better. We,
Mhm.
at some point, we as entrepreneurs, as creatives, we have to take responsibility for our own well-being. No one else is going to do it. If you're fortunate, you have family or friends or colleagues who will, be like, hey, you should like take a day off, or hey, just why don't you just
Yep.
go take a walk. That's always helpful, but it's going to take you being the one being like, you know what, I'm gonna just lay down today, or I'm gonna cancel some things and go to the farmer's market and buy some fruit. When's the last time I did that? So yeah, even like this platform that you're presenting as a space, like for me to be like, yeah, I should do better, is just like a minor step that I think is super helpful.
Absolutely. Always, my mom makes fun of me because when I go on vacays, she was like, "Why are you still running? Why are you still exercising? Why are you still doing this?" I'm like, "Mom, because if I don't do it, it's gonna, I have to have a routine. It don't matter what's going on. If I can take an hour and lay around, I can take half of that time and go get up and do a quick yoga session, go walk around the neighborhood, do something that's productive. And like you said, holding yourself responsible. You're older now, you know better, you do better. So you better set a reminder, an alarm, or something. Just readjust.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, so you focus on data tools designed for real careers. Do you see a future where biodata, like our hormonal phases, is integrated into how we plan our creative sprints and project timelines?
That's really interesting. So a lot of the data that we focus on at Could Be Pretty Cool is qualitative. So like what we're doing right now, having conversations and then extracting like the key points or the sentiment or the commonalities between a variety of conversations and trying to figure out, okay, what is it that creators are saying are the biggest roadblocks, or what is it, someone who has been in the game for 5 or 10 years, what are the things they're talking about versus someone who, is new to the game. And I think especially for our audience, which consists mostly of like older millennial to Gen Xers,
Come on,
yes,
OG millennials.
OG millennials who, for most of us, we played on Facebook when it first came out, but we didn't know that this creator economy, digital land was going to be a thing. So we're still kind of like, what's happening? But what's also happening is we're going to the doctor and they're saying, watch your cholesterol, watch your blood pressure, go get a mammogram, go get a colon. And it's like, wait a second, what is happening? So to your point, thinking about maybe not directly bio data, but maybe as we're looking at different demographics, maybe trying to figure out like, yeah, someone who is, in their mid 40s with 3 kids, what are some potential bio or health related things that could impact their career at some point? Maybe we should have, a conversation series about that, or what does that look like? because yeah, if you are unable to, feel your best, either, by crashing out like we just talked about, or by not being mindful of, the things going on with your body, you can't create the best. And so that's what we want. So interesting thought to put in the idea chest for later.
I love that. I love that. Yep, we have to continue those conversations. And like you said, even if it's single mom, 3 kids, what is your mental health like? Something that we like to talk about on this show is the biopsychosocial model. Um, I well, let me not say I just graduated because the ceremony hasn't happened, but I finished my capstone. So technically I'm graduated. But I just finished my
Congrats.
thank you. I just
Mhm.
finished my master's in psychology. And one thing that I learned is this biopsychosocial model. What biologically, psychologically, and socially affects people and cause them to do whatever it is that they do. And so I like to use that model when it comes to your menstrual cycle. Biologically, what is it? Is it your genetics? Is it how you learn things? Is it your body type, your ethnicity? Are you more susceptible to fibroids and endometriosis because you're a person of color, right? Or psychologically, your mental health, what's going on at work, what's going on at home? Are the kids running you ragged? Is your partner running you ragged? Is your coworkers getting on your nerves? Are you a person of color and having to deal with racism and all the things, right? And then socially, your environment, your culture, how you grew up. A lot of people are saying, hey, in my culture, my mom told me throw on that Kotex pad, you throw on that Tampax tampon, you call it a day, you keep it moving. We didn't know nothing about chemicals being in the menstrual hygiene products. We didn't know about, hey, white sugar actually affects your cycles, is attached to endometriosis. Alcohol is attached to fibroids, things we just didn't know. But you're like, hey, I'm from the South, so I'm gonna eat my crawfish. When I go to Mardi Gras, I'm gonna turn up. I'm from Texas, so barbecue's a big thing. Soul food, Tex-Mex, things that are like just culturally there. Being ancestors from Louisiana, we put heavy cream and butter in everything. Like when I first went vegan, I'm like, how am I gonna do this? I do butter and heavy cream in everything, but we just didn't know. So your environment affects the things. Maybe where you work at, the school that you're going to. Are you at a opportunity that you have access to a bathroom when you go to work? Do you have access to running water? Things that people just don't consider. So in my mind, when I think of like biodata, I just don't want to do biodata. I kind of want to do all the things because people just don't really put into to I guess notion, I guess would be the right word, I want to say, that everything affects your menstrual cycle, whether you want to believe it or not. It's not just, hey, this is what happens naturally. Everything, the argument you had with your mate, you being stressed out about your kids, bad grades or them getting in trouble in school, you mad about not getting that promotion at work, like all those things affects your cycle. So I would love to in the future just touch on all that data. That's what I'm trying to get to have my own research lab and do both quantitative and qualitative data and just figure out all the things that we need to know to manage our menstrual cycles better.
And it's so necessary because there is, I mean, we are still so behind on knowing these things for women of color in particular, for women of color in low income area. Like it just
Yes,
continues to go on. And yeah, in some ways, unfortunately, if it's not us to do it, who's going to do it? But also, if it's not us, who's going to do it? So great
exactly.
that someone is doing the work.
Absolutely. And mentioning people of color, us taking our power back, because if we want to talk about gynecology, it was built on the backs of our enslaved ancestors and y'all experimenting on us and trying to figure stuff out to go help your white counterparts. So, with that being said, why don't we take over this subject and bring it to light and bring more power to it so that we can empower all menstruators globally?
Absolutely.
Yep. So the follicular phase is often marked by a rise in estrogen and physical energy. How do you specifically harness this big picture energy after your period to move from a blank page to a viable project concept? So, have you ever noticed that some of your most successful projects or some of your most successful ideas happened after you came out of like that restorative period?
So let me tell you, like reframing this concept in a positive light is really interesting for me because I can certainly think of times when I was on my period where just nothing seemed like it was like working, and it's
Yeah.
like, I have a headache and I hate everybody and I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go home. Like those are times that I can vividly remember. I need to now do a better job of trying to tap in when I do have that creative inspiration and when I am like, oh my goodness, I thought today was going to be crazy, but like I did all the things and people said it was cool. Like when is that? When do I feel that the most? When can I tap into that the most? And while I haven't like formally, synced my cycles yet, I wonder if unconsciously when those times have happened, it's been around this follicular stage. Yeah, it's just mindset. It's so funny how it's so easy to remember, the negatives sometimes and how hard it is to appreciate the flow states. But maybe that's another part of, growing as we get older, just being more mindful of like, oh, wait, nothing's going wrong. And I actually feel pretty good. Why is that?
I love that. I love that. One thing that I have learned since starting the cycle sync, because I've only been cycle syncing, it will make it 10 years in 28. I started cycle syncing like in 2018. And one thing I pay attention to the most is when I'm collaborating with people. When I have big projects coming up, I'll go look at my period tracker and I'm like, okay, they want to do meetings on this day. This is the meeting they want me to present on this day. Girl, I'm about to make sure I'm falling right between them 2 weeks. Make sure we're good. Also, just planning around, like you said, being on your cycle. And sometimes we battle with imposter syndrome. Sometimes you're battling with not feeling good enough. It just seems like woe is me. The world is just all on your shoulders and everything, right? And then you can really have like real life stuff going on top of all of that, that makes it even worse. And so I try to make a very conscientious effort to look, even when I have a really good idea, I'm like, okay, I can't touch on that right now because I have too much going on. But when I plan that a couple of months out, let me look at my period tracker and make sure I pick it up like a week after my cycle. Even if I have flexibility of, hey, it might come early, the cycle might come late. Let me give it an extra week. And then I'm going to throw a day or two where I just kind of like brainstorm and just write out different options to, even if I don't touch it in a year or two, I'm like, let me just put that in the storage for the end of the year report. So when it's time for me to map out everything for the following fiscal year, that's going to come into play some type of way. And so I just pay attention to the most creative ideas. If I can't work on them right then and there, then I try to plan them around my follicular phase or even like ovulation, which is right after follicular when you're feeling like, oh, you're sexiest, your divine feminine energy. You're like, girl, why am I glowing today? Girl, you look good. Why you look so good today? Like, and then you know that you can go present projects. I like to do presentations while I'm ovulating. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a pheromone thing. I don't know if it's an energy thing, but if I would, anytime I present while I'm ovulating, I always like, it's just chef's kiss. It's like perfection almost. I'm like, girl, you did that. Now let me come out. I didn't did my thing. Now my cycle about to come in about 2 weeks. So let me go ahead and feel these symptoms. I'm about to go into hibernation mode and then we're going to do it all over again once it's done.
I think, yeah, for me, that not having to feel like you gotta pursue every creative project at every point in time, that's a really good takeaway. It's okay to put some stuff, on a back burner, and then when you're feeling like you're up to it, then revisit it. I think that's a really important piece of advice.
Yep. Because something to think about, even if you have that hesitation of, ooh, should I do this right now? I already have so much on my plate. To me, that's always like that sign of like the ancestors knocking on my head, like, okay, girl, I gave you this idea, but put it to the side because you might go through something in the next 6 months, 12 months. You might learn something different that's going to take that to a whole other level. So I try not to force that idea at that point. But if it's flowing, oh, we going to do it right then and there. But
Nice.
if there's like some hesitation or I know it's a great idea, but let me touch on it later because it's just not the time, it always works out in my benefit that I learn so much more before it's time for me to touch on that. That takes that project or initiative to the next level. Absolutely. So let's move forward. So for creators who struggle with analysis paralysis. How can they use the natural brain chemistry of the follicular phase, like the 2 weeks directly after your period, to take more risks during the brainstorming process? I know we just kind of did like a blurb about all that with the follicular phase.
Sure. I meet so many people who are like, yeah, I've had this idea, for a podcast for so long. But like once I have whatever it is, the right time to buy equipment, or once I have the right time to do 10 episodes in a week so I can have it all done, like then I'll start. And, I try to tell everyone that of course we know you don't have to be perfect before you launch into something, but you do want to at least be prepared, because presumably what you're doing is something that you care about. You want people to recognize like, oh, this is good, you put in a lot of great effort. But I am a big fan of the teaser, the even if whatever you release or whatever you do isn't something you release, if you just give yourself a practice round, find a friend, find a colleague to just record something with, listen back to it, figure out what you want to do, that's a baby step. And so for the folks listening who have that analysis paralysis, yeah, like anything that inches you forward, you have made an accomplishment. You have made an effort to pursue your goal. And it doesn't have to be anywhere close to what the final thing is. And so, again, in learning more about this follicular phase, I mean, maybe that's the time you do your baby step. That's the time you just write down 3 ideas in your journal. That's the time you practice, I don't know, your TikTok dance in front of the mirror. Like, just, yeah, move forward a little bit and you've done something.
Absolutely. Well, I did consulting for nutrition after I became a nutritionist, but in my past life, I was a business consultant. And what I used to tell my clients was benchmarks is your best friend. People think that you come up with a goal and then you just have to do it all and have it perfect. No, do benchmarks. You need to do subtasks. You need to do sub goals. You got to give yourself grace. Stuff is going to happen. You need to be prepared that the small wins are going to get you there. And I always say, like, look at it like 10% increments. Do a little bit, then do a little bit more. And then once you get to 25%, you're like, okay, I'm a quarter way done. You do a little bit more, you get to 50% instead of just trying to force everything. Cause I feel like that can cause that burnout. It can cause you to have that creative block. I notice a lot of writers have that writer's block and they're not understanding where it's coming from because you're trying to force so much at one time. Like it's not going to always happen like that. All right. So we are actually going to cut to our second commercial break, guys, and we will be right back with you. Periods got you down? Kick cramps to the curb with Pilates for periods. Our online program combines targeted Pilates, soothing yoga, calming meditation, and breathwork to help you manage your menstrual cycle naturally. Feel stronger, calmer, and more in control. Reclaim your comfort. Visit Pilates for Periods YouTube page linked in the description of this episode and start your journey to a more manageable cycle today. Now, back to the show. Welcome back from that commercial break. We hope that you enjoyed it. All right, Kacie, let's keep it moving. Now, ovulation is the peak of communication and expression. So that's like your natural glow and your peak defined feminine energy that I mentioned earlier. So in your experience, how do you think creators can batch their high visibility tasks like recording, networking, or even pitching to align with this specific window? It's kind of funny because I had just said I like to present during my ovulation phase.
No, but I think that's a really cool thing to think about. Again, a lot of our job is having to pitch, is having to meet the stranger for coffee, to, just plant the seed about a possible future collaboration. And so, yeah, how can one's natural body rhythm help to enhance that? Again, just thinking about time, like sometimes it feels like you're pulling teeth to try to make things happen. And then sometimes it's like you barely open your mouth and someone's like, hey, can we do this thing together? Or do you need any help with this? And so again, just wondering unconsciously, those times when, in the past, I've been able to walk into a networking mixer or some sort of thing, and you leave with like, the contacts of like, wow, these were some really key people to meet. And it was so chill and it didn't feel like work. When was that? Like, I'm going to have to pay better, attention to it now. But yeah, it's just really interesting to think about.
Yes, I love those organic, valuable contacts, honey. Yes. Love it, love it, love it. So, social energy is at an all time high during the ovulation phase as well. How does this phase help creators move past the imposter syndrome that often halts the creative process? Because I noticed that even my past clients through menstrual therapy, they are always like, I'm so confident when I'm ovulating. I'm so confident. And I'm like, yeah, girl, go work the room. That's when you work the room. So, what do you think that can do to help creators move past imposter syndrome?
I think going back to that reframing from earlier, because I can think of the exact opposite times when I'm either on my period or right before, where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going. It's like I'm okay. I'm gonna just lay on the couch. And so, I wonder, and I mean, maybe you can tell me, is that feeling when you're ovulating, when you feel a little bit more like, oh, okay, like, is that biological? Because then our bodies want us to go out and mate with somebody. And so that's why we're like, woo, we're amazing. I don't know, but it kind of makes sense. Yeah. I mean, anything, again, just that reframing. I can, instantly connects to feeling like, ugh, I'm like crap. I look like crap. I don't want to go. I don't want to do this while on my period. But I need to start tapping in more into like, you know what? Yeah, let's go. What's the worst that could happen? Or, I'm going to do great. Or this is going to be amazing. Just being more mindful of how, the biological signals impact those moods. Yeah.
Yep. And like you were saying, even while you're on your period, I don't want to get up. Like, I kind of don't want to be bothered. Like, just leave me alone on my couch, my bed. Let me do my thing. But while you're ovulating, you want to communicate for some reason. You're more perky. You're like, girl, that bloating done went away. This dress fitting right. Like, let's go ahead and let's get out here and like make things happen. You just feel so much more confident. And I feel like when you're menstruating, until you can tap into that power and truly cycle sync, people are going to have a negative context about it. It's like, it's so dreadful. Like, I'm so tired of this. Like I want to be done already. Like, just take it out of me. But I feel like once you become more confident with cycle syncing and once you get more in tune with your body and you can control your cycle more, it's not as dreadful, so to speak.
I
To
think
me, it's
that's
more
great.
to me, I feel like though, if I am always going as an entrepreneur, student, a wife, just trying to do so much in life, running a business, I feel like if I'm not going to rest any other day, I'm going to rest the first 2 days of my cycle, guarantee. And I always plan around it, always like schoolwork, traveling, business meetings. Before anybody say, hey, can we do this? I will check my tracker before I go to my calendar just to make sure. I'm like, okay, what dates they said in this month? Okay, so let me go to my calendar now and see what works. Just because I say give yourself that time to rejuvenate, give yourself time to rest and just like recuperate.
I think that's great. I think my mom and like my sort of auntie tribe, they did a wonderful job of not making us like feel ashamed or feel like, like they wouldn't let us call, our period the curse and like that sort of thing. They're like, no, this is part of your womanhood. You're going to be dealing with it whether you want to or not. You might as well, they gave us all the right information. And what I feel like you're doing is like now taking that positive spin to the next level. You're, I think just because it isn't something that's talked about a lot, especially in connection with the work world, taking out those negative sort of feelings or acknowledging them and saying, but this is how, you can not get over it, but this is how, you can work with it.
Right.
I think that is such a needed thing for so many people right now. especially like you said, people are juggling way more than our brains and bodies were probably meant to. And so, yes, how can we best focus on being able to do that without collapsing every day? Probably is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yes, KCA, give off good auntie vibes. I'm here for it. Let's show the nieces what to do. I'm here for it. Now, the luteal phase is the next phase after ovulation. So we have follicular, which we've talked about. That's when we're like our most creative. It's the first 2 weeks, typically like 13 days after your cycle ends. So once you stop bleeding, the next 13 days is follicular. And then ovulation, they say it's 1 days, but it's really like 1 to 3, 1 to 2 days that you go through ovulation. And then the next phase is what we call luteal. It's the next like 7 to 13 days before you actually start your period. So that's like the week before when you're like, why am I not in it today? Like everybody's getting on my nerves. You're mad in the car, like you're bloating, you're already starting to feel like you're shedding, starting to prepare. You're trying to figure out, why am I all over the place? I'm emotional, and just not realizing that your cycle is getting ready to start. You haven't impregnated an egg. So they're like, hey, we skipped you this month, and now you're going through the process of releasing. And what people don't realize is like your period is really like a detoxification of the body. Your body is literally shedding the uterine lining because you didn't have a baby. And it's like just cleansing you out for the next month to see if you want to do it again. And so with the luteal phase, a lot of people just don't like it, and I'm here for it. Like, I understand you don't like it because it's just when all your symptoms just start coming up. So it's often unfairly maligned because of the PMS. So how can creators use this time frame to push through before needing to rest during their period?
What a great question. But I think I have accomplished things during some of the worst bouts of PMS too, just because rage
Mm-hmm.
can be a motivator.
Yes.
And even just like, like, damn it, here, I'll just do it myself, which, we don't always have to do everything ourselves. But sometimes that wouldn't come unless something pissed you off bad enough and you just figured it out and, did it. Of course, yes, championing rest and wellness and well-being is really important. I just, going back to my childhood, something else I remember about my mom, I remember, especially when I first like started my period, like 10 or 11, I used to ask, can I stay home from school when I'm, because, you're like, I don't, what if somebody knows, or what if something happens? You're still like kind of freaking out. And she would
Exactly.
say no, because when you get older, you're not going to be able to stay home from work every time, you're on your period. So you have to learn how to be in school, go to, sports practice, go to a sleepover. Like, this is something that you're going to have to figure out. And so I think even that was a good groundwork for kind of this question that you're asking. Like, some days, as much as tapping in and planning is a good thing, some days you're going to have to present when you have raging PMS, or you're going to have to collaborate. And, maybe just rewarding yourself a little extra when you can rest for,
Mm-hmm.
keeping yourself together might be what you have to do during those times.
Absolutely. I love that. And I don't like really the idea of saying like push through, like, yeah, you have to hurry up and finish
Right.
this. But some people have that grit. They're like, you know what? I don't want to be on my cycle and still having to do this. So let me go ahead and get this done. So I love that idea. Alicia Baumgartner just recently she's a boxer, and she recently had a fight in April, and she won a world title, and she was wearing white, and she told them she was on her period. And I just was like, what, girl? You did what? And at one point, it was like halfway through the fight, I'm looking at her and I'm like, damn, she's not moving the way she normally moves. Like, she must be tired. And then once I found out she was on her cycle, I was like, no, them cramps was kicking in, and she was having to take a moment because she's getting hit while she's getting hit on the inside. And I was like, that is insane. So some people, for some reason, can push through and have that energy and like conquer things towards the end of that luteal phase, or even going into their period, which I feel like that's like warrior, barbarian, Viking type energy right there. That's like straight powerhouse, seriously. But let's move on. How do you advise creators to manage their creativity when they feel like they have lost their spark?
I I have this conversation in some variation all the time, especially because in these times we're in right now, all you have to do is scroll on your phone for 10 minutes and then, you could be like, okay, done. What is this news? What is this? Looking at what's happening in our world today, adding that with things are just getting more expensive. Maybe you're grabbing some snacky things you wouldn't have grabbed beforehand just because they're cheap. Having to do more with, there's so many factors that for, anyone, it could be hard to perform whatever your job is. But then as a creative, you have to like be a reliable person and also come up with ideas and be inspired and perform. And so I think that the reality is sometimes you do just have to pause. Sometimes forcing or trying to force yourself to just perform and perform either literally or figuratively can cause more damage in the long run. I know I've had to just consciously, I consider myself someone who paid a lot of attention to the news and I wanted to be informed. And then I would just find myself like staring at a wall for 20 minutes because I'm just like, why am I sitting here trying to like make this podcast when there are these atrocities happening all over the world? Like,
Yeah.
but that sort of hopelessness or putting yourself in a space where then you don't want to make anything, that's not helping to solve anything either. So, yeah, just if you need to take a break from something whenever you can, just sometimes that is the solution to then eventually get your cup refilled when it can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. That was beautifully said. Now, before I go ahead and give some quick tips, I want to ask you one final question. Now that we've learned about some ideas with cycle syncing and what a creator could do or even an entrepreneur could do, how do you think that would change the way we value labor and productivity?
Absolutely. As much as I can these days, I do believe in conscious capitalism. I do believe that people can run businesses and consider how the work affects their workers, to actually care about the well being of all of their workers, to know that their workers aren't a monolith and that everyone is going to need the same accommodations or everyone is going to be able to do everything the same. So I truly believe that there are enough of us. And again, you got to stay away from all the doom and gloom you see, but there are enough people who are entrepreneurs, who are creators, who are like, you know what? I don't want the people who work with me to hate working here because they're miserable. I don't want them to have to work 2 and 3 jobs because they're not able to buy the things that they need to survive. And so I do think that there are enough of us who are going to make it so that if, an employee, a colleague does say like, hey, I'm having terrible cramps, I need to go home. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll cover for you at the thing. And it's not a huge deal. I do think that is a world that we can exist in. And again, it's, thanks to folks like you who are making these conversations just like regular conversations because they are. So yeah, I think there are enough of us to make it happen someday.
Absolutely. And I hope that the United States can adopt what some of the other countries in the world are adopting. Like, for instance, I know Spain, Japan, even Canada, they offer menstrual health leave at their jobs, where the first 5 days of your cycle, you have those days off. Of course, that's having time off, not touching you like your sick time and your already paid time off for your PTO. But then they also offer maybe like hybrid work. The first 2 days, like you still have to work, but you can stay at home and work from home and then come back to work, your third or fourth day. And I'm like, when is the United States going to hop on that? Because that would be so helpful for a lot of people. But,
Absolutely. Well, we'll see. Positive thinking. Positive thinking.
Yes, so let me hop on some tips before we cut to our last commercial break. So, for creatives, during your follicular phase, we talked about that being the first 2 weeks after your period. That's the best time for exploration and brainstorming. This phase is marked by a rise in estrogen and physical energy, making it ideal to move from a blank page to a viable project concept. So, your best activities can be brainstorming, taking risk, and exploring the bigger picture of ideas that you may have. Also, creative edge. Your brain chemistry during this phase is naturally geared towards making more risk, which helps overcome your analysis paralysis. And then you have the ovulation phase, our next phase, 1 to 2 days, sometimes three, but it's all about expression and pitching. So your ovulation represents the peak communication and social energy. It is the most outward facing time of your cycle. So the best activities are batching high visibility tasks such as recording, networking, pitching projects, or even pitching for grants or for funding, or even public speaking. And then the creative edge of that phase is the surge in social energy helps creators move past imposter syndrome, making it the best time to share your work with the world. Then the next phase, which is the next 7 to 14 days based off of how your cycle is the luteal phase. That's where you have your execution and your refining. So while often unfairly associated with the PMS, the luteal phase is actually a powerhouse for finishing what you started. So the best activities are finalizing projects, editing, proofreading, and administrative tasks. But your creative edge, you can lean into the detail oriented nature of progesterone to handle the nitty gritty work required to get a project across the finish line. And then the final phase, which is your menstruation phase, typically lasts from 3 to 7 days. It's all about reflection and visioning. This is the inward facing phase where energy levels are typically at their lowest, requiring a shift in how you value labor and productivity. Now, the best activities are rest, reflection, journaling, and even setting intentions for your next cycle. And with the creative edge, honoring this natural rhythm allows you to rest your creative spark so that it can return with more inspiration in your next follicular phase. Now, we're going to go ahead and cut to our last commercial break, and we will be right back with you.
Fly. Do you want? Yeah. Fly. Fly. Do you want to fly? Fly. Let go of all the things that hold you down. Used to be so easy.
Now, back to the show. Welcome back from that commercial break, guys. We hope that you enjoyed it. So I have thoroughly enjoyed talking with you today, Kacie. May you please let the people know how we can get in contact with you and what you have going on.
Absolutely. So no, this was such an just mind-opening experience. I appreciate you for having me on. And yes, the best way you can find out about Could Be Pretty Cool, what we have going on, is at our website, couldbeprettycool.com. Also on Instagram, Could Be Pretty Cool. You can find us and me on LinkedIn. It's probably my most unhinged place where I hang out, surprisingly enough. But yeah, we have some cool projects that are coming up. We have our accelerator podcast program, cohort members, some of the folks who, I am most inspired by, people who are trying something new. And, hopefully maybe they'll hear this and be like, yeah, we should keep trying new things and figuring out where our cycles fit into all of that. Yeah, those episodes have just launched. So I hope that you'll check them out. And yeah, we're around.
Absolutely, guys. And I will be sure to include her information in the description of this episode so you guys can stay connected. Now, with us, every 2 weeks, we're always releasing new content on our Pilates for Period YouTube page, which is our yoga, Pilates, breathwork, and meditation content. And bi-weekly content. And then, of course, every Menstruation Monday, we're dropping a new podcast episode for you guys. And then if you would like to stay on top of everything else that we have going on, we recommend that you subscribe to our monthly newsletters, which will be all included in the description of this episode. Now, what an incredible deep dive into the world of cyclical creativity with Kacie Luaders. To recap our masterclass on sustainable productivity. The power of the follicular phase. We discussed using the rise of estrogen to move from a blank page to a project concept, utilizing the natural big picture energy to take risks during brainstorming. Harnessing your ovulation. We explore batching high visibility tasks like pitching and networking during the peak of communication to push past imposter syndrome. The Luteal powerhouse. We reframe this phase as a period for execution and refining, leaning into the detail-oriented nature of progesterone to cross the finish line on our projects. And then finally, challenging the hustle. We talked about moving away from the 24-hour hustle narrative and towards a future where hormonal data helps us plan our creative sprints. Kacie, thank you for showing us that our energy isn't lost when it turns inwards. It's simply preparing us for our next creative spark. Now, it has been an absolute honor to share this space with all of you today. Gratitude to all of you for tuning in to this episode. Now, we are still accepting listeners' mail, so feel free to comment on this episode, or for a more intimate and private interaction, you can email us at contact@kickcrampsass.org, which will also be listed in the episode's description. Now, if this episode resonated with you, please share with at least one person or whoever else you feel like who needs to hear that their pain has a purpose and a solution. Subscribe to our platforms to keep updated on the latest news, resources, tools, and tips. And don't forget to check the show notes for any additional resources that we mentioned and could assist with having a more manageable menstrual cycle. Now stay empowered, disciplined, and show yourself some love and grace. We will see you next Menstruation Monday, but until then, we manifest a positive, productive, and peaceful remainder of your week and menstrual journey ahead. Peace.